Hello, everyone. I'll just wait for some people to come in and join us. Hello. Thanks for joining. I'll just wait a couple of minutes before to allow some other people to arrive, if that's okay. And if you could tell me in the comments where you're from, that would be great. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. I better just share it on the group page before I forget. So let me know where you're from in the comments. That would be great. Are you from Egypt? Where are you from? I can't see any comments yet. So just tell me where you're from. That would be great. Can you hear me clearly, by the way? If you could just let me know if you can hear me clearly. Otherwise, I'll put my headset on if you can't hear me. Can somebody just let me know in the chat here if you can hear? Can you hear? Yes, we've got a thumbs up. Hi, Esra. Hi, Esra. Can you hear me okay? Or do I need to put my headphones on? Great, Hanny. Thank you, Hanny. Welcome. It's clear. Perfect. I'm using the webcam microphone, so I wasn't sure if it was going to be clear enough. So thanks for joining me, guys. Thanks very much. How's your IELTS preparation going so far? Are you having fun with it? Fun might not be the right word. It can be fun, but sometimes it can be quite difficult as well. So hopefully after today's session, you'll have a bit of a better understanding about the questions, because I wanted to have a look at the different question types and some important things in the questions that you need to pay attention to so that you can get a good score for your task response. Hi, Zahra. Thanks for joining. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. It's great to see you all here. Okay, now I'm going to try and share my screen with you so we can get started looking at some of the questions. So bear with me for one while I figure out how to do this. Oh, there it is. Okay, it's the first time I've done this on StreamYard. Now, can you tell me what you can see? I shall change the viewer so you get me and the picture at the same time. Let's see if that works. Guys, can you see the Word document? Now you should be able to see it. Yeah, great. Okay. Sorry about this, because I can't see it. I'm trying to see it. You can see, great. Okay. So the first, it is small. Yes, how do I stop that then? Hang on, sorry, let me just, why don't I, what if I do this instead? Shift 8. I'm just getting to grips with StreamYard. It's a little bit small, yeah, I can see that, honey, as well. How do I do that now? Okay, what might be easier, you're using the phone, yeah. What might be easier, guys, if I actually just stop the screen share and I'm going to type it and have it as a banner on the screen. That's going to be much easier, I think. So let's have a go. Let's see if this will work. Sorry about this. I'm very new to StreamYard. I'm new to streaming, so it's taking me a while to figure it all out. But here we go. Okay. Create a banner. Here we go. Let's see. Now, if you've been with me before, you may have actually seen these questions, so apologies. All right, let's have a look at this question. Now, can you see that? It's a little bit small as well, but I hope you can see it, and I will read it out for you. So some people feel that the best way to reduce the number of accidents on the road is to further limit the speed of vehicles. Others think that there are better ways to tackle this issue. Discuss both views, and it should have and give your own opinion, but it ran out of space. So, what do you think that this question is about? If you could type in the chat, tell me what you think. What do you think the question is mainly about? Let me know in the chat, in the comments. Good, it's clear now. Great, thanks, Zahra. What do you think? Is it about speed? It's about accidents. Yeah, that's right. And it's about reducing the number of accidents. So you have to be very clear about that and talk about reducing car accidents. Yeah. Now, you've got two clear views here. Some people think this and other people think that. So you have to talk about both because it is asking you to discuss both views. So you are going in one paragraph, you're going to be talking about why some people feel that the best way, now whenever we see these words, the best or better, words like that, what does it mean? What does the best actually mean? What do you think? Yes, Esra, reducing the number of accidents. What do you think the best means? It means the best, doesn't it? It means that there is nothing better. So for the first view, there are some people who think that the only way, the best, the only way, there is no better way to reduce the number of accidents on the road, but is to limit the speed of vehicles, to further limit the speed of vehicles. Yes, Mariam. Hi, Mariam. The most effective is right. The top solution. Yeah, that's right, honey. When it says to further limit the speed of vehicles, what does that mean? What are you going to talk about in this paragraph? Are you just going to talk about speed limits, having a speed limit? Or is there something else in that part of the question, in that view, that you need to pay attention to? There's one word that you really need to pay attention to there. What do you think it is? Type it in the chat. What do you think? It's taking a while for the chat to come through, actually. To further limit the speed of vehicles. No, that's not. It's not just that the speed, to limit the speed, there's something else. Rules to control the speed, no, but there are a lot. No, we're still looking at the first view. The first view here, that some people feel that the best way to reduce the number of accidents on the road is to further limit the speed of vehicles. I've just stressed the word that needs to be paid attention to. Further limit. What does further limit actually mean? Do we have speed limits on the road already? Yes, Mariam, exactly, further. We already have speed limits, don't we? Not just restrictions, Esra. To further limit means that we have to reduce the current limit that we are allowed to drive at, the current speed. Not more than available, no, it's to further limit. So at the moment, on some of the motorways, major roads, the speed limit could be 100 kilometers an hour or 100 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour or 120 kilometers an hour. So yes, exactly, Mariam, exactly. Yes, reduce the limit even more. So this part of the question is saying further limit, further reduce the speed of vehicles, because there are already speed limits. So to further reduce means to lower the current speed limit. Can you see how by one word can actually change the way that you would write this paragraph? Because if you ignore that word further, you're going to talk about just having a speed limit in general. And that isn't the question. The question is reducing, making them lower the current speeds. So it's really important that you pay attention to these little words that can actually make a very big difference for your task response score. Because if you were speaking only about having speed limits, then you're not fully addressing the task. You're not addressing all parts of the task, or you could be slightly off topic because you're not actually talking about reducing the current limits that there are. Okay, so keywords in this are going to be the best way and also further limit the speed of vehicles. Now, the second view that you need to talk about is that others think that there are better ways. So in one view, we've got the best, and in the other one, we've got better ways. So you have to say which one is going to be the ultimate best way, okay? So that there are better ways, more effective ways to tackle this issue. And what's the issue? What issue are they tackling? Type it in the chat. What issue? It's reducing the number of accidents, exactly, of road accidents, reducing the number of road accidents. So because you have to discuss both views and give your opinion, type in the chat which view you support. Which one do you support? Do you think that limiting or reducing current speeds is the best way, or are there other ways? What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat. Gosh, the chat comes through very slow. It might be my connection. Okay, other ways. Zahra, you think other ways? So you're with the second view. That's okay, you can be. You have to think about what those other ways are though, and why they would be better. Okay, Hanny, you think that it's lowering the speed, okay, is the key solution. Zahra, you said about improving road conditions. Yeah, you've got to be specific about how they would actually stop road accidents. And the same, Hanny, you have to think about why. So if you support, so for Hanny and myself and anybody else who supports the view that the best way is to limit the current speed, you have to say how. So if you support that one, the best place to put this paragraph and talk about this view is in the second body paragraph. Now remember, you have to discuss both. So you will put the one that you don't support, you will put that first. So you will write that other people think, there are people who think that there are other better ways, that there are other ways. So you do have to talk about these other ways. You can't just talk about reducing the speed limit. If you only talk about that, then you're not going to get a good score for your task response because you're not addressing all parts of the question. You're only partially addressing it, and that's really going to limit your task response score. So you have to talk about both. Now, the view that you don't support, you still have to say why some people actually think that it's a good way. You can distance yourself from this opinion. So you can say, you know, the people who support this, there are those who support this view, who claim that, who believe that. All of that type of language is going to distance yourself from this particular view to say that you don't support it. Other people do, but it's not what you support. It's not what you agree with. Okay. Can you actually, Zahra, you asked a good question. Can I say it is a mixture of speed and other things? For a discuss both views and give your opinion, the best way is just to stick to one opinion that you agree with, particularly for this question, because they are two opposite things. You've got the best way and better ways. So you can't, it's difficult to say that they are both the best. How can they both be the best? They can't be the best. So it's easier, it's much easier to write so that your position doesn't become unclear. Just stick to one of them, even if you don't agree with it in real life. Just choose one and say, I support this particular view, okay? So the body paragraph, the view that you don't support will go first, and you have to discuss why some people believe that other ways will be the best way to tackle the number of road accidents. And then in your second body paragraph, you will write about why you agree that reducing the speed is the best. So that even though those other views are valid, reducing speed is really the only way that traffic accidents will reduce. Now, of course, if you believe the other view, if you believe that other methods are going to reduce traffic accidents, then that is going to be your second body paragraph, okay? Hanny says there are other ways like road control by the police and impose severe fines. Yeah, now also just be careful when you're thinking about ideas for this question, other alternatives, do they actually exist? So Hanny, you have said there are other ways like road control by the police and to impose severe fines. Now, the police already do police the road. They're already looking for people who are disobeying the road rules. Now, I know that in some countries, they don't do it very often, but in other countries, they are a lot stricter. The police are much stricter in stopping people for any traffic violation. So that does already exist. And also imposing severe fines, fines do already exist. So think about your ideas that you're introducing, because do they exist in real life or don't they? Okay, we've already got police policing the streets. We've already got fines, but does it stop road accidents? No. So they maybe need to police the streets more. They need to impose harsher, more severe fines than they already have. So think about that. So whatever is working now, it's a great solution, but there needs to be more of it so that it will be the best way. Okay, think about it. Think about it in real life. Yeah. Mariam's asking, can I say why I don't think what's your question? Sorry, there we go. Can I say why I don't think limiting speed further is not the best way? Well, yes, you would. You can say that in the body paragraph that you support. Sorry, in the view that you support. So when you say, actually, you can do it two ways, but you do have to discuss both views. So be careful of that. If you wrote one body paragraph that was saying why you don't think it's a good idea, limiting speed, then you're not actually discussing that view about why some people believe it's the best way. You could add a sentence at the end to show that it's not the view you support, but it's a discuss both views. So you have to discuss both of them. It would be better to put that in your second body paragraph, the view that you do support, and say why you don't think limiting the speed is the best way, and then go on to talk about the other ways that would be more effective. Yes, but don't write a whole paragraph about why you think it's not going to work, because that's not discussing both views. Okay. Okay. Road accidents are playing an important role. Hello, Hisham. Welcome, Hisham. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for your comments. Thank you. I've lost my train of thought now. So basically, be careful. You can reject the other side, but make sure in a discuss both views that you are clearly discussing both views. Otherwise, your task response score is going to be limited because you won't be discussing them equally. You won't be discussing both of them. So be very careful about that. All right, so does anybody have any other questions about this particular IELTS question? If you don't, then we'll have a look at another question. Okay. Copying here. Let me change the question then for us. And I think I've already got it. Here we go. All right, let's have a look at this question. Some people think that certain criminals should be made to do unpaid community work instead of being put in prison. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Interesting question. What do you think that they mean by unpaid community work? What type of things would that involve? Unpaid community work. What do you think? Do they have that system in Egypt, in your country? Do they have unpaid community work as a prison sentence instead of going to prison? Let me know in the comments. Volunteering, yes, honey. But volunteering for what? What would it be? Work for society? Yeah, but doing what specifically? Think about what would they actually do for the society and what would they do to volunteer? What type of things? Would they pick up rubbish on the street? What would they do? This is what you have to think about. This is about sort of brainstorming as well. When you're thinking about the question, think about, ask yourself these questions. Well, what does that actually mean? When we say unpaid community work, what they actually do? Educate older people. Yeah, they could be doing some form of teaching the elderly. Not about crime, though. Hopefully they're not going to teach them how to be criminals. But maybe how to use smartphones or the computer, or maybe they could help the elderly gardening in their gardens, in their doing household chores, painting the streets, painting buildings. There's a lot of things that they could be doing to help society. Maybe they could be helping to feed the poor and the hungry. Lots of things they could do. All right. So the other thing that we have to look at in this question is that it says certain criminals. Certain criminals. Now, who are certain criminals? What type of criminals do you think should be made to do this voluntary work, this community work, instead of going to prison? What type of criminals? Murderers? I don't think so. Murderers shouldn't be doing community work. Exactly, Mariam, thank you. Non-violent criminals. Yes, non-violent criminals. And what type of criminals or what type of crime would a non-violent criminal commit? Youth criminals, okay, so, okay, underage, yeah. But even if they murder, Zahra, what about if they murdered somebody? Should they still be given community service rather than go to prison for murder? Even if they're like 15 or 14 or 15? Yeah, Sarah, shoplifters, exactly. Shoplifters are an example of non-violent criminals, if they are non-violent when they shoplift. Also petty crime. We call it petty crime, so petty criminals. Any of those criminals that are, it's minor crime. So like you said, shoplifters, pickpockets, traffic, if they a traffic violation, maybe they don't pay their bills, things like that. Yeah, of course, not all crimes, exactly. Unarmed robbery, yes, unarmed robbery, Mariam. Yeah, very good. So we've got a lot of ideas there about the certain criminals. That's really important because I have seen students write this essay and they talk about murderers, but it doesn't fit the question because it says certain criminals should be made to do community service or unpaid community work instead of going to prison. And that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for violent offenders, for violent criminals to not be put in prison. All right. Yeah, vandalism. Yeah, exactly. That's another good example. Vandalizing, so breaking a window or graffitiing on the side of a shop or on the wall or something. Yep, exactly. Okay, so what would your opinion be for this? Do you agree or do you disagree? Any way of punishment should be applied in order to reduce the crime volume in the community. Yeah? Zahra, you're making it difficult for yourself. I can choose to partially agree. Yes, you can. You can. But if you do that, it means that you are going to write a balanced view. So you sort of agree and you sort of disagree. So you have to give it some form of balance. And when you do that, it's very difficult. You have to be a very flexible writer and good writer to be able to write a balanced view. Otherwise, it just takes one word to throw off that balance, and then your position becomes unclear. So while, yes, you can agree and disagree, you can partially agree, you can partially disagree, you can. But the easiest approach is just to choose one side. Do you agree or do you disagree? And just stick with it. Stick with that. It's much easier. Even for native speakers, it's going to be easier because we don't want to throw that balance off, and it's very, very easy to do. So Mariam, you agree with it. Okay, so we have to say, and for anybody else who agrees, and I agree as well, why? Why? Why should petty criminals do community service instead of going to prison? Yeah, Zahra, it can be easier in terms of idea, but you can use concession. You can use concession to just sort of introduce another, to show that you've thought about why somebody might disagree. Like I said, there's nothing wrong if you want to do a partial agreement, but you have to be careful with it. You've got to practice it a lot and be very careful with it. So, Hanny, you agree, but not for all criminals. Well, that's what the question is. The question says for certain criminals, not for all of them, for certain criminals. So exactly. So you would have to say why you agree that certain criminals shouldn't go to prison. So you would say the type of criminals that shouldn't go to prison and why they shouldn't go to prison. Tell us why. Now, you could either say from the perspective of the criminal that it wouldn't be a good thing for them to go to prison because maybe they would become even more violent being surrounded by other criminals. Maybe it could be detrimental to their life. They could lose their job. They could lose their house. They could lose all sorts of things. You could also do it from the prison side, the prison perspective, saying that it costs a lot of money for the government to house a criminal in prison, a prisoner. So by allowing them to be in the community to serve their sentence, it's helping to reduce the costs that prisons have to pay to keep a criminal there. So Mariam's saying to provide services for the society, avoid exposing non-violent criminals to the prison environment. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. Yeah, Mariam, exactly. Zahra, you've mentioned something interesting. There's no need to deprive them from their salary and put them with severe criminals. Now, they may not get a salary because the question does say unpaid community work. So they may actually lose their job. They may lose their job. But I guess there would be some cases where somebody could still be employed and have to do community service as punishment. Yeah, it depends on the crime. Honey, because they may meet with bad criminals in prison and learn from them, but unpaid work may teach them some useful things in the future. Okay, well, you'd have to say what useful things and how they're going to be useful and why is that beneficial instead of them going to prison. So yeah. So when you're thinking about your ideas, don't just think about going to prison. Think about what, from, like I said, from the different perspectives, from the criminal's perspective, from the prison's perspective, even from the community's perspective. Think about it in different ways to help you generate those ideas. But certainly you need to be saying for this type of question why you agree or disagree. why you agree that some criminals, not all of them, just certain ones, and say who those certain criminals are, why they should be doing unpaid community work instead of going to prison. Yes, unpaid part-time. Yeah. All right, great. All right, any other questions or comments about that question? No? All right, we'll have a think. And while I get the next question, you can type it in the chat if you have a question. Okay. No other questions there? Let's try this one then. Okay. Here we go. All right, here's another one. Nowadays, many people drive to work or school instead of walking, cycling, or using public transport. Does this trend have more advantages or more disadvantages? So what do we have to talk about here? Tell me in the chat what we're supposed to talk about. Yes, Heba, I've just seen your comment. Yes, that's true. Some people, they have to commit a crime. Maybe if they have no food, so they have to steal some bread or some fruit or something. Yeah, just because of circumstances. Yeah. Okay. Now, Zahra, you've said disadvantages, definitely disadvantages. But are we supposed to talk about the advantages as well as the disadvantages? What do you think? Does this trend have more advantages or more disadvantages? Who would write about both? Who would write about both? Me. I would. I would definitely be saying that there are advantages and disadvantages. Because the question is saying, does this trend have more advantages or more disadvantages? So it's telling us that there are both. There are advantages and there are disadvantages. The question wants us to say, are there more? Which one has more? It's like saying, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? So you should be mentioning both of them. You should be saying that there are advantages, but there are more disadvantages if you believe that there are more disadvantages. Hanny's saying that the disadvantages are less than the advantages. Yeah, so you should be talking about both. And what else should you pay attention to in the question? Tell me some of the key words that you can see in this question that you really should be mentioning, including, or paying attention to. Nowadays, many people drive to work or school instead of walking, cycling, or using public transport. What do you think? What are the key words? Come on, chat. It takes a long time to come through. All right, well, while I'm waiting, you need to talk about work and school. You can't just talk about people driving. to work. Because the question does say people drive to work or school. So in order for your task response to show that you are addressing all parts of the task, you need to make sure that you do mention work and school. I mean, it depends on how far the school is from the workplace, yeah. The other keywords that you need to focus on: walking, cycling, or using public transport. If you only spoke about public transport, then you're not addressing all parts of the task. If you only spoke about walking and cycling and driving to work, you're not addressing all parts of the task, because it is clearly stating they want you to talk about the differences about driving to work or school compared to walking, cycling, or public transport. So you do need to be mentioning all of those things in order for your task response to show that you are addressing all parts of the task. Now, another important thing to think about here is it says nowadays. Nowadays, which means as soon as we see that word, we automatically think, oh, maybe that's different from the past, because it's saying nowadays. Then when I continue reading and it says, does this trend? Because it says many people drive to work or school instead of walking, cycling, or using public transport. So if I'm thinking logically and based on that question, yeah, in the past, many more people used to cycle, walk, and catch public transport. So I've got, not only have I got the words nowadays and does this trend, because what does a trend mean? A trend means that something has changed, it's something new that's happening. So this trend, so those two key words and the way that the word is written indicates to me that something has changed from the past. So in my response, I would actually be including something that relates to the past. I would be comparing to the past. Like, why in the past did people cycle, walk, or use public transport? Or I would be saying why today they drive to work or school instead of using walking and cycling, because something has changed from the past. I would definitely be including something about the past. It makes sense. It makes sense to compare, because it's talking about a trend that is happening now, which was clearly different than before. So think about that in your ideas. That the purpose of today's session here is to get you thinking about the questions, maybe in a different way than what you've been thinking about them before. Don't just look at the words. Look at what they're actually saying and think about it. Think about it in practical terms. Yeah, why are more people driving today instead of walking and cycling and taking public transport? Okay, so you've got to think about those reasons first. And then you've got to say, is that trend, does it have more advantages or disadvantages? Advantages, yep, our lifestyle is different. Hi, Mohammed, thanks for joining. Walking and cycling would be related to the idea of working out in general and its effect on health. For public transport, it would be related to the idea of pollution, crowdedness, and the ideas of individuality. Yeah, well, you have to say, does it have more advantages or disadvantages? So first of all, what do you think? More advantages or disadvantages? What do you think? I actually think that it has more disadvantages. So I would be talking about why there are some advantages, but I would be mainly focusing on that there are more disadvantages. And yeah, I would be saying how one disadvantage is that it's not as good for our health. So our health is suffering. People are more obese these days compared to in the past because they're not moving as much. People can just jump in their car and drive. It doesn't take a lot of physical energy to drive a car. But you compare that to walking or cycling, it uses up a lot of energy. So you're going to be burning calories. Public transport, maybe you have to walk to the bus stop or you have to walk to the metro. So again, the public transport, there is possibly more exercise than just jumping in your car and driving somewhere. Yeah, so an advantage, and he says there are many advantages of walking or cycling, in particular the impact on health, as we need to walk for some while or do any kind of exercise. Yes, it's a disadvantage, you mean? No, it's an advantage. I see what you're saying, yeah. If distance is accessible, no. If distance is a problem, so if we work or if we drive and if we live or if school is far away from where we live, then it's an advantage because walking, it could be too far to walk. Maybe there is no public transport. Maybe you live in a village or in a town where there is no public transport. And cycling, it's all going to take a long time. So a car can be faster to get to work or school. So yeah, you should be actually thinking about both of them, but then just show which one has more. Okay, make sure that you include more to show that you believe that and say that this trend has more advantages or disadvantages. Okay. Have we got time for one more? I think we've got time for one more. Let's have a look. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Copy. Oops. No, Mariam, like I was saying, because the question is saying, does this trend have more advantages or more disadvantages? It's showing that there are clearly both. So my advice, and certainly the way that I would write this, would be I would be talking about both. But you might want to keep the advantages paragraph quite short and then have a longer disadvantage one to show that there are more disadvantages. I wouldn't only be writing about the disadvantages. If it was me, no, I would be wanting to acknowledge that there are some advantages, but there are more disadvantages, okay? All right, another question here. Now, let's see if you can pick up the keywords in this one. Okay, there we go. Nowadays, people are less fit and healthy than they were in the past, which could affect their long-term health. Why do you think this is, and what can be done to solve this problem? So what are they asking you to talk about? Cause and solution. That's what they're saying, okay? This question is asking for the cause of people being less fit and healthy, and how can they solve that so that it doesn't affect their long-term health. Yeah, Heba, that's right. Yep, I agree. Yes, the advantages for cycling and walking, they have more benefits for our health, for our energy, for our brain, for everything. Yeah, exactly. All right. So for this question, should we be mentioning and comparing about the past, What do you think? Nowadays, people are less fit and healthy than they were in the past. Yeah, but yes, lack of physical activity, but why? Why are people less physically active? Sorry, because the chat's coming through quite slowly. Munir, you've asked me, should I mention my opinion in advantage and disadvantage tasks? Well, you're certainly going to, in the previous question we were looking at, it says, are there more advantages or more disadvantages? You can certainly say, I believe that there are more advantages or there are more disadvantages, because it's asking you, do you believe there are more this or more that? So yes, it's absolutely fine to put your opinion, and you should. You can clearly state your opinion by saying, I believe there are more advantages or more disadvantages. You can say that, or you would do it just by the way that you write, so it's clear for the reader that you support that there are more disadvantages, because you would add more disadvantages, and the way that you write it is clear that there are more disadvantages. But yeah, if you want to keep it simple, you can just put your opinion, yes. So going back to this question, yes, so people are less fit and healthy today than they were in the past. So why do we think this is? Because they drive everywhere. Maybe because of junk food, fast food. Maybe because they're too busy. A lot of people are, technological advances. But Mariam, why? What are the technological advances? How does that make people less fit and healthy? See, this is the whole point. When you're thinking about your ideas, don't just think technological advances. You need to think, what do I mean by that? How do those devices and how does technology cause people to be less fit and healthy than in the past? Think about it in your developing stage. Due to an unhealthy diet, yes, correct. Comparison between lifestyle in the present versus the past and how that affects health, both on short term, that people are not as fit as before. But why? Yes, Mohammed, you're coming up with the ideas, but why? Why? Why is the lifestyle different? Why has it affected their health? What are they doing? Why aren't they as fit? Why? This is what the question is. Why do you think this is? So you have to clearly say why people are less fit and healthy today compared to the past. So again, like we looked at in the previous question, think about the differences. Mariam said about the technological advances, but how? How does that make us less fit and healthy today? Okay, that's what you need to think about. Less active, yes, but why are they less active? Why? That's the big question. It's one of my favorite questions to ask when we are thinking about our ideas for an IELTS essay. Why? Always ask yourself why, because it helps you explain that idea. Why is it? Okay, and that's what they want in terms of your task response. They want you to, or they want to read your ideas, not just technology, but how does that relate? Why is that an issue? Why and how, what result, what impact? That's what they want to see for task response. You've got this idea. How did you come to that idea? Why do you think that? Okay, that's what they want to see. Lack of exercise. Yes, Munir, there is a lack of exercise, but why? Why are people less physically active? Why are they exercising less? Yes, honey, food it's not as healthy as before, but why? Because there's a lot more junk food, a lot more fast food, and often it's cheaper than healthy food. So people, especially those on a tight budget, they will buy the cheapest option, which could be junk food. Also, there's a lot more fast food restaurants. I mean, think about just in your own city. If you can think about in the last sort of 20, 30 years, however old you are, or if you've seen any pictures from the past, how many more restaurants and fast food outlets are there? It's probably a lot more than in the past. So they are a lot more accessible than what they used to be in the past. Also, because people are very busy, they're working a lot more compared to in the past. They're working longer days. So a lot of people don't have time to prepare healthy meals. So they'll just grab something that's fast, delicious, and full of fat and sugar. Yeah, less effort because maybe they are busy, or some of them living in the countryside. They don't have a clue about a gym. maybe. But, you know, in the past, people probably didn't have gyms either, but they were definitely a lot more active doing like the cleaning and the washing, and they didn't have vacuums and they didn't have modern appliances like washing machines and microwaves. They didn't have these things in the past. I'm talking a long time ago. Yeah, recent life, people are more stressed than in the past. So what does that mean though? They're more stressed, but how does that make them less fit and healthy? Okay. And the other part of the question, so you've got two parts here. You're going to have one body paragraph that's talking about why you think, the causes of people being less fit and healthy today compared to in the past, which could affect their long-term health. And then the second part is what can be done to solve the problem. Now, this is where the second part of the question or the statement is going to, you would probably use it more. What can be done to solve this problem will be more connected to that could affect their long-term health. So that's where you could introduce and put those two bits together. So your second body paragraph, what can be done? What can be done? How are we going to solve this problem? Yeah, Mariam, that's right. Yeah. Driving regularly instead of walking, and using telephones and the internet instead of actually physically going to see someone or delivering a message. Yes. Every habit needs constantly to see the effects. I don't understand, Heather, where that falls into the idea here. Yes, Monia, you should be, because you've got two clear questions. So one body paragraph about the causes, and then one body paragraph about the solution. Yeah. So you would have the one body paragraph about the causes and say why and explain why those things are causing people to be less fit and healthy. So with an explanation and an example if you want. And then the second body paragraph talking about how to solve, ways to solve the problem, explaining how that's going to help. Okay, remember, whenever you are introducing a solution, you should be saying how that's going to help. Don't just say a solution is for people to stop driving. No, we want to say if people reduced the time driving, they would then walk, or you've got to give some sort of alternative to show how that is going to be beneficial. Okay. The other way that you could do this, No, I won't say that. I'll leave that for another question. So yeah, you've got to come up with the solutions now. So what are some solutions to the problem that people are less fit and healthy today compared to the past? That's going to affect their long-term health. Think of some solutions. Yeah, try to eat healthy food. Thanks, Honey. Try to eat healthy food as much as possible. To exercise, to do sport, and reduce technology. So to reduce the usage of technology, so like your smartphone, all of that. But you do need to say how each one of those, if you're going to introduce all of those solutions, you have to say how each one is going to make people more fit than they are, and how that's going to positively affect their long-term health. Okay? Remember, you want to put that long-term health. You could also say it will avoid people from suffering from diabetes or heart disease as they get older. So long-term health issues. Encourage people to think about changing their lifestyle. Okay, but how? How are you going to do that? Something that I see a lot in essays is people will say something like you did about encouraging people. And it's not very specific. It's not very detailed. So what do you mean by encourage them? How are you going to encourage them? Don't they already know that it's bad for their health? So encourage them how? Or I see students saying an awareness campaign. Well, what type of awareness campaign are you referring to? Be specific. Be specific with what you're saying. Heba, if you need to change a habit, you should constantly. Yeah, you've got to have a regular routine or a habit, Heba, is what you're saying. So you have to start that, make that change, and then continue it. So yes, you could use that as a solution, but really you do need to give a solution about how to stop people from being less fit and less healthy, which could affect their long-term health. Yeah, by media and social network, but again, try to be specific. What's the difference between causes and the effect in this task? Well, a cause is the reason, isn't it? So there is a reason for something. And the effect is what happens because of it. This question is just asking you for the cause and then a solution. But what I was saying is that when you think about a solution, think about the effect that will have. So when you're explaining your idea, when you're explaining your solution, think about the positive effect that will have. What is the result of that? So if people do this, this positive thing will happen. That's the effect, okay? But the question isn't asking you for cause and effect, it's asking you for cause and solution. But like I said, whenever you have a question that is, or when you are giving a solution to anything, any problem, think about the effect. We want to see that positive effect for a solution. Okay. Yeah, again, make sure, Mariam, that you do think about that it's going to be a long-term health issue. Okay. We've actually gone an hour, guys. I think we better stop. I could keep going, but we better go. All right. So I hope that was beneficial for everybody. Do you have any questions? Any final questions before we finish? Manir, what do I mean thinking long term? The question actually says which could affect their long term health, which means their health in the future. Their long term health is, maybe if by eating too much junk food now, in 10 years' time, you may end up with diabetes or with heart disease or being obese. So it's long term health, their future health. Yeah, you can do that through social media. Yes. Again, you want to be specific. What sort of social media? How are you going to use that social media to solve the problem, to raise awareness? How are you going to do all of that? Mohammed, that's an interesting question. Let me pop that up on the screen for everybody. Oops, what's happened? How can I speak English very well? That's a good question, Mohammed. Practice, practice, practice. You have to continually learn vocabulary. It's very important. Even for native speakers, we are constantly, well, we should be constantly learning new words because none of us know the whole dictionary. It's impossible. So, reading is a very, very effective way to increase your overall level of English. You can, of course, take courses at a centre or with a private tutor, but I find reading is very effective. And any words that you don't know, write them down and then look them up in the dictionary. That's a good way. In terms of actual speaking, you have to speak. Okay, you've got to speak in order to improve. So you can walk around the house speaking to yourself. The other thing is to copy people that you listen to. So if you're listening to a podcast or a video, I wouldn't suggest this for to do with movies or songs, but definitely with any podcast, TED Talks, anything like that. Just pause the recording after you've listened to a sentence and then try to repeat how they're speaking. The BBC 6-Minute English is good for that. If you want more of an American accent, then try Voice of America. But definitely reading is a great way to build your overall English, and of course listening. But in terms of speaking, you just have to practice, 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 practice. Yes, Manir, I will be posting this live stream so you can watch it again, hopefully. Oh, Manir, your exam is tomorrow. Okay, everybody pray for Manir. He's got his exam tomorrow. I hope you do really, really well. Just remember to keep it simple and accurate with your language. Don't try to overcomplicate your language and relax. Okay, just relax. And you should be going to bed and sleeping early tonight. Hanny says, I understand. Whoops, I missed that. I understand English very well. I have some limitations in speaking sometimes. Yeah, okay. So again, Hanny, the same for you. The same advice is listen and repeat. That's going to help. Increase your vocabulary. Even if you know a lot of words, what happens quite often is that we can't remember them. We can't recall them because we don't use them often enough. So the more you go through your vocabulary, put the words into sentences that you create, something that you can remember or a situation that you can use them in, then that's going to help the language come to your active brain, this part of the brain that we need. We don't want it at the back of our brain that we just can't remember, which happens quite often. So again, with you, just practice. Listening and repeating will be another good exercise for you to do. Law about the time. People must take care about their physical activities. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So the government, in terms of that question we were just looking at, a solution that the government could actually specify a time or law that people have to exercise. Okay. It's an idea. Yes, encourage people to eat healthy food, but I think it's also about sharing or explaining the dangers of not eating a healthy diet. But I know the dangers of eating a healthy diet, and I don't. I love junk food. I just love it. Webinars, gathering people to teach them. Yep, all of that, yeah. All right, everybody. So we better finish up, and I'm pleased that you all enjoyed it. Saad, I'm sorry, but we're just finishing. I'm grateful that you all came. So please follow me on YouTube, on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That would be great. And if you have any questions, by all means, you can message me on my page, IELTS Prep Me. And yeah, I'll see you in the next live stream, hopefully. All right, everybody, have a good evening. Look after yourselves. And good luck, Manir. Take care, everybody. Bye.